Good day. This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you for Reason to Resist from Kalamata, Greece on October 16th, 2025. And we're joined again by a great friend of our show, Laith Marouf, a geopolitical analyst extraordinaire based in Beirut, executive director of Free Palestine TV. Thank you very much for joining us again, Laith.
Great to be with you, Dimitri. Thanks for having me.
So, Laith, I'd like to start by talking with you about this peace summit that just occurred in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt on October 13th, about 10 days after the signing of the agreement between the resistance and Israel. The presidents of Egypt and the United States presided over this summit in the same place, Sharm el-Sheikh, as the agreement was negotiated. And representatives of around 30 countries attended. Predictably, they were mostly from the West, and there were a smattering of Arab and Muslim vassals tossed in for good measure. People who were clearly closely allied with Washington. And one of them was Shehbaz Sharif, the Prime Minister of Pakistan. So I'd like to show you a clip, Laith, of Sharif speaking at the summit with Donald standing beside him. And as you're all going to see, various Western leaders, including Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and the pathetic Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis were all standing behind Trump and Sharif as Sharif spoke. And as you watch this, I suggest you pay close attention to the facial expressions of Meloni, Starmer, and Mitsotakis.
Well, I would say today is one of the greatest days in contemporary history because peace has been achieved after untiring efforts led by President Trump, who is genuinely a man of peace, who has relentlessly and untiringly worked throughout these months, day in and day out, to make this world a place to live with peace and prosperity. I would say that Pakistan had nominated President Donald Trump for Nobel Peace Prize for his outstanding, extraordinary contributions to first stop war between India and Pakistan, and then achieve ceasefire along with his very wonderful team. And today, again, I would like to nominate this great president for Nobel Peace Prize because I genuinely feel that he is the most genuine and most wonderful candidate for Peace Prize because he has brought not only peace in South Asia, saved millions of people.
Okay, I can't watch it anymore. So I'm sorry for subjecting you all to that. For some reason, you may have seen, Laith, Meloni kept covering her mouth. Either she has bad breath or she was trying not to laugh on camera. I don't know what the hell she was doing. But anyways, I'm most interested for your take on not just Sharif's comments. I'll ask you to comment on that first, but also your overall assessment of this so-called Gaza Peace Summit. Did it achieve anything for the Palestinian people?
Yeah, I mean, the face of the Greek Prime Minister there, he was definitely cracking. He couldn't believe that somebody, I guess, would humiliate themselves this much. A president of a country that's almost 300 million people, Pakistan. So it's a nuclear also country. So it's also funny to see how Starmer was gonna clap almost, but realized that there wasn't enough people clapping, so he didn't want to look like the monkey behind the president, the emperor. Look, this summit was a gathering of all the vassals that are willing to humiliate themselves in front of their own population and in front of the whole world at the order of the emperor. And this summit was basically many of these Arabic and Muslim countries, vassal leaders coming to kiss the ring of the emperor. There was no peace achieved at this summit. In fact, whatever document was signed there, the Zionists didn't sign it. It was all these other leaders, basically vassals, that are signing their pledge of allegiance to the emperor in front of the whole world. And this summit, if there's something for our viewers to learn from it, is to sit back and read history. Because over the last 2 years, there's been a lot of analysts, people that sell themselves as if they are experts on the region here, who have taken the viewers on a roller coaster ride. One day it's like Turkey's going to flip, another day Qatar is going to flip, a third day Saudi is going to flip, a fourth day Pakistan is going to provide nuclear umbrella to protect Iran. Sixth day, Indonesia is going to send 20,000 troops to save Palestine. And so people need to, make sure that those who have made these mistakes over and over in the last 2 years in an analysis should be put back in their place. These are not serious analysts, okay? It's clear in my mind, from even just reading the modern history of the Arabic and Muslim world, post-World War I, even if we don't want to go back further, that all Arabic and Muslim countries fell under Western colonization by the end of World War I. Every Arabic and Muslim country was controlled by the French, the British, the Italians, the Spanish, the Portuguese. And only a smattering of those states managed to escape colonialism in the revolutions of the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, the broadest republics. And unfortunately, even within those few, 20% of Arabic or Muslim countries that escaped colonialism and vassalhood, since the fall of the Soviet Union, practically every one of them was returned to imperial control. So once you understand this very basic, it makes it easier to analyze what is happening. Suddenly, you see Saudi Arabia, after allying itself with the British and the Americans since the 1920s, fighting every Arabic and Muslim revolutionary strain, suddenly it's going to defend the Palestinians after actually the defeat of every Arabic liberation movement since the 1940s. Suddenly they're going to be now the ones that are revolutionary. It doesn't, none of that makes sense. So I hope that the viewers take from the last few weeks a full exposure of these Turkey, Pakistan, Saudi elite, now like a full understanding of how things are working on the ground there.
Since we're on the subject of vassals, Laith, before the so-called peace summit began, Jeremy Scahill appeared on Electronic Intifada to talk about what happened behind the scenes in negotiations between the resistance and the Israeli genocidal entity. And for those of you who don't know, before appearing on Electronic Intifada, Scahill had the opportunity to interview leaders of the resistance and gained insight into what had gone on behind the scenes. And here's some of what he had to say in that piece on Electronic Intifada.
Israel is trying to do is win through this agreement what it has systematically failed to achieve in Gaza, which is forcing the surrender of the Palestinian people. It's not just about Hamas. They are trying to strip the entire population of Palestine of the right to armed resistance. And so what the Palestinians came back with was to say, let's talk about captives, let's talk about aid, let's talk about the genocide, and let's talk about the withdrawal of Israeli forces. All of these other issues need to be deferred, and they need to involve the participation of every political actor within Palestinian society representing a democratic will of the Palestinian people. That was the response. Shockingly, to some Palestinian negotiators, Trump responds to this and says, great news, Hamas has responded positively, and it seems like they want peace and we can make a deal. So then you had all the delegations descending on Sharm el-Sheikh, and I was told by Palestinian resistance sources who were involved with the negotiations that unprecedented pressure was being put on the Palestinians primarily by Egypt and Turkey. Qatar, I'm told, was a little more neutral and kept emphasizing this has to be a Palestinian decision. But Egypt and Turkey were basically saying, you need to make a deal here. In the end, they also acknowledged it was a Palestinian decision, but I was told there was immense pressure.
So, according to Scahill, there was immense and unprecedented pressure put by Erdogan and Sisi on the Palestinians to do a deal. And notably, he said the Qataris were less forceful in pressuring the resistance and stressed that it was ultimately a Palestinian decision. Now, I'm going to come back to the question of the Qataris in a moment. But what do you make of these revelations? Why would, we can agree, and we have agreed on multiple occasions, that Egypt and Turkey ultimately do the bidding of Washington, but why would they have been selected to play this role of putting immense pressure on the Palestinians to make concessions? And what do you think that tells us about these two governments?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's two reasons. Number one is Egypt is the largest population-wise Arabic country, and it's also the only Arabic country that has a border with Gaza. Therefore, it has a lot of influence on the entry of food and aid to the besieged strip, and has a lot of sway within Arabic people's opinions. In terms of Turkey, its stranglehold on the Muslim Brotherhood, brand gives it a lot of say in what's happening, and so the propaganda that's coming out of the Turkish Qatari combined media empire is massaged to achieve its political goals. And in this situation, Qatar was playing the good cop, because Qatar is a tiny, nothing state without its media. It doesn't have a population. It doesn't have real influence in the Arabic world beyond its media empire. So, and its money bags that it can send in and out. So I think we need to be very careful here, not to make Qatar look good. In fact, they were just playing the good cop role, especially since Qatar basically approved the killing of the Hamas negotiators on its territory, and played all that theatrics when it failed that killing. The killing of those negotiators of Hamas was supposed to force the Palestinians inside Gaza, who at that point would be cut off from the rest of the world, to follow the dictates of the empire. In this situation, the Palestinians were lucky enough that the negotiators survived this, and therefore we had to see all this theatrics being played out just to end the war.
So, as I mentioned, and as you yourself just talked about, the Qataris, at least superficially, according to Mr. Scahill, were adopting a somewhat more moderate position, right? Now, with that as background, some interesting news emerged from Sharm el-Sheikh after the agreement was signed, and that is that 3 Qatari diplomats were killed and 2 injured in a car crash near the town of Sharm el-Sheikh. And we're talking about some pretty important people within Qatar. The dead included Saud bin Thamar Al Thani, a member of Qatar's royal family. And here is what I believe to be an image of the fancy Mercedes in which they were driving. As you can see, it's been demolished, and apparently it looks like there was a fire. And the reports were that there was a loss of control of the steering wheel, probably when the vehicle was traveling at high speed. Otherwise, if it was traveling, at a slow speed, it's unlikely that there would have been 3 people killed. Now, I don't know about you, Laith. I'm no expert in automobile engineering, but I would have thought that a Mercedes, this finely constructed German luxury vehicle, is not likely to experience a catastrophic steering failure at such moments. I don't preclude the possibility it happened, and this could certainly just be an accident. But with everything that's been going on between Israel and Qatar, and then there was this news that Qatar was playing some kind of a moderating role in these discussions. What do you make of this? Do you incline towards the view? I'm sure you would agree with me that we really can't say with a certainty what happened here, not based on the public record. But do you incline towards the view that there was foul play here, or do you think it's more likely to have been just an accident?
Yeah, I mean, there's also a van that was carrying some of the rest of the delegation that was pictured as flipped over and everybody dead in it. So it's not only one car. It seems like it's a car and a van, both having an accident at the same time on the path on this international highway that's top standard in Sina, that is only designed for tourists because Egyptians can't even get to Sharm el-Sheikh without permits themselves. This is a resort area. So what are you saying to me that these international delegations that flew into Sharm el-Sheikh had an accident on this international highway, a few kilometers between the airport and the resort? And none of it makes sense. I mean, there is, of course, all that conspiracy theory that the Israelis killed them because they were helping Hamas in the negotiations, which is counter to logic because we know Qatar, Turkey, and Egypt and all the Arabic vassals were constantly pressuring Hamas to do what the Zionists want and what the United States want. So either this was truly a pure accident, or if this was an assassination operation, it doesn't make sense that it's the Israelis or the Americans. It would be the resistance, the axis of resistance doing something. And so I don't know if that is also possible, but there is constant operations, intelligence operations by the axis of resistance that are happening all around the world. Neither the axis of resistance announces them, nor does the enemy also accuse the axis of resistance of doing these things, because part of the warfare that we are living in, this is psychological warfare, and admitting that the axis of resistance is capable of killing Israeli operatives somewhere, and or these, in this situation, vassal negotiators, would be opposite to all the psychological propaganda that is out there that the Zionists are all-seeing and all-controlling, and that the Arabs and the Muslims and the axis of resistance are all failures, right? It doesn't play good for the Zionists to announce this, and the axis of resistance is happy to keep all this backdoor operations that are happening around the world under the radar.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you said earlier. It was very likely to be the case that the Qataris greenlighted the attempt to murder the Hamas negotiators in Doha. So the resistance had a lot of motive to inflict some pain upon the Qatari autocracy. I doubt we'll ever actually know what happened here, but I find your interpretation to be the most plausible one. So I'd like to move on next to what is actually happening in Gaza as we speak, or over the last few days. And not too long ago, I think it was 48 hours ago, maybe a little longer than that, the genocidal Israeli regime handed over to the Gaza Health Ministry the bodies of 90 Palestinians who had been kidnapped by Israel's genocide forces from the Gaza Strip and who died while in Israel's torture camps. And I'm going to show you here a summary of an article that I posted. This was from The Guardian today, and this is my summary of the article. I posted this on X this morning. Doctors who examined the bodies found that almost all had been blindfolded and had gunshot wounds between the eyes. Many showed signs of torture. None were identifiable. The bodies were handed over by Israel with no identification, and the hospitals in Gaza, heavily bombed over the course of 2 years of war, had no means of doing DNA analysis. A doctor, a Palestinian doctor who examined the bodies, said they know the identity of these bodies, but they want the families to suffer even more about these victims. Nasser hospital authorities said the bodies, which had been kept in refrigerators in Israel, were returned with numbered labels, but no names. Now, before I ask you about this report, Laith, I just want to share something with you and our audience that happened after I posted this on X. Somebody replied to my post as follows. I don't know who this person is, by the way. This is obviously some kind of a fake name. They said, "Wonderful, long live Israel. Rats don't deserve names. Even giving them numbers is a nice gesture." So why am I showing you this? I'm showing you this because although I don't know who this person is, I think we can safely infer that this person is an avid supporter of Israel. After all, this disgusting comment starts with, "Wonderful, long live Israel." And I'm showing you this because I believe that this really sort of shows us the true face of Zionists today. These people, the ones who continue to support Israel after all the horrors we've witnessed, are the most fanatical and hardcore and merciless and psychopathic of Israel's supporters. And when they're not speaking under their own name and they can't be identified, they just come right out and say what they think. And this is how they think. They see the Palestinian people as rats, and they celebrate. They celebrate the torture of Palestinians, and they celebrate the brutal murder of Palestinians. I cannot stress enough that the people who support Israel today are the lowest forms of life in human society. They are the bottom of the human barrel. When people see them walking down the street, they should walk on the other side. They should ostracize them from civilized society. And in fact, this particular individual, if we had a functioning and just law system, legal system in Canada, or wherever this monster happens to be situated, would be prosecuted for spreading genocidal lies and propaganda. So I just wanted to get that off my chest, Laith. And here's my question to you about this report. I would have thought that if you commit atrocities of this nature, your natural inclination is going to be to hide the evidence. The last thing you'd expect is that you turn the evidence over to the Palestinians of your execution, your bold-faced execution and torture of 90 Palestinians kidnapped from Gaza Strip, but the Israelis just handed them over anyways. I'm curious what you think about all that, Laith.
And of the bodies that were handed over, there was 40 children that were killed inside Israeli dungeons during this war, that were kidnapped from Gaza. I tell you something that maybe it will help everybody understand here. The Zionist empire used all its combined military might, including that of its vassals, Arabic and Muslim vassals, because we know now that they are, we have proof. I've personally already knew that the Saudis and Qataris and others were involved militarily to defeat the Axis of Resistance in the past 2 years. But they used all of this combined military force and lost the battle in Gaza, lost the battle in Lebanon, lost the battle in Yemen, lost the battle in Iran. Similarly, the combined propaganda might of the empire, the propaganda machine that includes Al Jazeera's propaganda machine, lost resoundingly. Actually the propaganda loss of the Zionists and the empire is unprecedented in human history. Here you have the combined propaganda machine of the empire from Japan to Qatar to Washington, losing against citizen journalists and social media posts. Not only the battle about Zionism and what's happening inside Palestine and the history of Palestine and Zionism, but also destroying their whole credibility and a combined 80 years of propaganda about Western exceptionalism, human rights, women's rights, children's rights, international law, all of that demolished by citizen journalists. Okay, so the only kind of warfare that is left for the Zionist empire to play is psychological warfare. And the main trick that the Zionists are using in their psychological warfare, that Al Jazeera and Qatar are participating in, and the Saudis even, by the way. Today there was just before I explain this, the main form of warfare that they're doing is this propaganda warfare, which is directed to demoralize populations, to show outright genocidal criminal activities of the Zionists and rubbing it in your face to say, look, we can do this and you know about it and I'm telling you about it and nothing you can do to stop it. For instance, today the Saudi Al Arabiya television, out of the blue, decided to release all these interviews with Palestinian prisoners of war that were just released. And each one of them is talking about rape, torture, humiliation, people being killed in front of them, women being raped in front of them, all of these things. Do you think Al Arabiya and Saudi Arabia just suddenly, after 2 years, decided that their media is going to talk about the plight of the Palestinians? No. The intention is to show the Arabic and Muslim peoples that are still supporting the liberation of Palestine that if you do, you will be raped. Everybody will be knowing about it. We may even release a video like the Israelis did of you being raped. Okay? And we'll rub it in your face, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. So this is now the only trick that the Zionist empire has, even those that peace summit, quote unquote, in Sharm el-Sheikh. This was again rubbing it in the faces of the Arabic and Muslim peoples. Yeah, you thought Pakistan is going to use its nukes to support Iran or Palestine. You thought the 300, 400 million almost in Indonesia are going to come to the aid of Palestine. Look what's going to happen. They're going to kiss the ring of the emperor in front of you, humiliate themselves, and you can't do nothing about it. That is just of the only kind of warfare left. And I think it's also the only successful warfare that the Zionist empire is conducting right now. And partially not because of how successful they are or how good this propaganda is, because of us, people that retweet this stuff. Okay? I haven't for once, on Free Palestine TV's accounts, reposted any humiliation of the Arabic and Palestinian peoples. I did not post anything about these rapes, not because I want to hide that the rapes happened, but because it's clear to me. We, as a anti-Zionist activists and so on, collectively are failing in this psychological warfare front. We're successful in the propaganda warfare. Our warriors are successful in the military warfare on the ground, but we have a huge failure on the psychological warfare front. And that 6969 account that you just put up there is clear as a bot, by the way. I mean, we have now, there was a study done about by Iranian and other activists about, for instance, the influence of the free press and very unwise or very wise, whatever the people want to call her, about how 90 somewhat percent of retweets and so on of the account, the free press, the Zionist account, are bots, inflated artificially. So we shouldn't be, number one, retweeting. I think anyone that is on social media and a Zionist interacts with your account, whether it's a bot, a troll, or a real Zionist, just block them. Just block them. We have 98% of the population of the world that we need to talk to. And retweeting the Zionist accounts or interacting with them is actually re-emphasizing their point of view. You don't need to talk to them. There's no way you can convince a Zionist, a Jewish supremacist, to stop being a Jewish supremacist, no matter what you do. And debating a Zionist with their arguments in front of the rest of the world does not help us. It only re-emphasizes Zionist speaking points in the mind of the collective humanity. So ignore their existence and speak directly to the masses that are hungry for knowledge, that are aching in their hearts about Palestine and colonialism and imperialism. Address them directly without ever playing in the sandbox that the Zionists put for us or repeating their arguments. Take the time to speak to the majority. The majority is ready to move on as if the Zionists don't exist.
And for the record, I certainly did block this piece of refuse. Let's move on to the state of this so-called ceasefire. The resistance has reported that within the past 72 hours or so, there have been dozens of violations by Israel of the ceasefire in Gaza. And here is a brief statement which was published yesterday on Resistance News Network, a Telegram channel that is very informative for those who want to follow developments in West Asia from a resistance perspective. And the network reported that 2 martyrs ascended after IOF drones opened fire on Gazans returning to their homes in Shujaiya, east of Gaza City. IOF tanks also opened fire in areas of Khan Yunis, while IOF boats fired on Rafah. So they've got all guns, they're using whatever weapons at their disposal to continue the killing. And 15 Palestinians were abducted near Rafah. Since Friday, 36 documented ceasefire violations by the IOF have resulted in the martyrdom of 8 Gazans and several injuries. So, Laith, in addition to these ceasefire violations, Trump has now said publicly that Hamas will have to disarm, and that if it doesn't disarm, the U.S. and Israel will disarm it, perhaps violently. Interestingly, he wasn't saying that between the time that the agreement was signed and the time that the 20 Israeli prisoners of war were handed over to Israel. But that's what he's saying now. So do you think this agreement will hold, or is it headed for collapse? Has it, in fact, collapsed already? What's your prediction for where we go from here?
Yeah, I mean, the Zionist objective is, as told to us by Trump and his envoy like Thomas Barak, is to subjugate the Palestinian, Arab, and Muslim peoples, that they will be dominated by the Zionists, and that there will never be peace. These are the words of Thomas Barak. There will never be peace. The Arabic and Muslim peoples, including the Palestinians, have to agree to be slaves. And every once in a while, a Palestinian, an Arabic person, a Muslim person will rebel because they don't want to be a slave, and they will be bombed, that nation, even if it's a vassal nation. Okay? And so this is what is always been the objective of Zionism and the imperialist backers behind it, is to subjugate the Palestinians, Arabs, and Muslim peoples. And we're now beyond the point of just subjugation. We're, Arabic people, as we keep on hearing Canadian politicians, American politicians, need to, accept the right of Israel to exist. Meaning, Arabic people need to admit that we are colonizers, and that the Zionists from Europe are the indigenous people. Okay? That's what means for Egypt or Jordan to sign a peace agreement with the Zionist colony. And Muslim people need to sign on to the Abraham Accord, which basically will be Muslim people saying that their own prophet Muhammad and the Quran and the God of Islam are liars. Okay, that there is a chosen people, and those chosen people are the Jews, and we are their slaves. We are Goyim. We're not human. That's what the Abraham Accord is. This is what peace treaties with the Arabs mean. It has the Arabic peoples and Muslim peoples have to come out on a podium and say we are subhuman, and the only humans are the Jews. That's what the Abraham Accord and peace treaties with Arabic states mean. And therefore, this is an untenable situation. It's impossible that every Arabic person accepts that they are invaders and not indigenous to their own land. It's impossible that every Muslim person on this planet accepts that their religion is a lie, and that Judaism is the only true religion. Okay? So there will always be war. And it's, what we see right now with the quote unquote ceasefire in Gaza and this exchange of prisoners of war, I think the reason that the resistance accepted this is not because they thought that this is going to end the war. Okay. It's because it's going to take one of the major propaganda points left in the arsenal of Western media about why is this war continuing, which is the existence of these Zionist prisoners of war. Well, now the prisoners of war are exchanged. How would the Western media justify this? Where, and the pressure points within Western society are now getting to a crucial point. If there is a return to full-scale genocide in Gaza, as Trump is threatening to do, those movements in the West will move from being nonviolent, I believe, to a militant stage that will bring us back to the age of the 1970s of militarized battles on the streets of European capitals and North American capitals.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When you look at over the past 2 years, how much ink was spilt on the Israeli prisoners of war in the Western media. It went on and on and on. Well, that distraction, at least that's what I'll call it, because in the sense that it was given grossly disproportionate importance, that's gone. They can't be going ranting and raving all the time, the Western corporate media and the political elites, about these Israelis being held in custody in Gaza. And I have no doubt that this is going to make it much harder for the Zionists to justify Israel's crimes. I'm sure that that was something that was very much in the minds of the negotiators for the resistance when they agreed to this. And another, I think, obviously there is considerable value in at least there being some pause in the mass slaughter and an introduction of much more humanitarian aid, even though it's grossly inadequate. Those certainly were benefits. And one other thing, which I don't know that it was necessarily a significant factor, but I would imagine, Laith, that it was quite a burden for the resistance to keep those Israelis alive during all this time and prevent them from being apprehended by Israel's genocidal military. And that burden is now gone. And so the resources that were committed to keeping them alive and keeping them away from the Israelis will be freed up to strengthen and bolster the resistance if and when the ground forces return to areas they previously occupied. Now, unless you have anything more to add on that subject, I wanted to move on to the question of what is happening in terms of the Palestinians who have been released. As you've indicated, almost 2,000 of them have come out of Israel's torture camps in the last few days. And 250 approximately, I understand, were serving life sentences. The rest were kidnapped from Gaza. They were returned to Gaza. The ones who were serving life sentences, I understand, were delivered to Ramallah. And I'm going to repeat something I said in an earlier report this week. A lot is being said by Zionists about the people with life sentences, their convicted murderers, and so forth. I can't stress enough that judgments rendered by Israel's courts, and especially its military tribunals, which are bereft of due process against Palestinians, are absolutely worthless. They're no more valuable than toilet paper. And I'd go so far as to say that the judges who sit on Israel's military tribunals, who tolerate torture, greenlight torture, who constantly authorize administrative detention, people being held for months and months, years on end, without conviction, without even a charge being brought against them. These people are war criminals. The judges on Israel's military tribunals are war criminals. And I think the judges on Israel's Supreme Court are war criminals. So why would anybody attach any weight to convictions entered by the courts of a genocidal apartheid regime against the subjugated people? That just amazes me. But what I want to invite you to do, Laith, is just talk more broadly about the importance of the release of these people to Palestinians. What's your view as a Palestinian about that?
Yeah, much of the people, the 200 somewhat actual prisoners that were in Israeli dungeons prior to the beginning of the genocide were Palestinian heroes, warriors that led operations against the Zionist colony during the first and second Intifada and even further. One of those people that were just released has been in jail since the early 90s. And by the way, some of those were deported into exile. The actual names that the Zionists released that had any political influence possibility were deported to Egypt and or Turkey. And the Zionists refused to release Ahmed Saadat, the leader of the PFLP, and Marwan Barghouti, the leader of the armed wing of Fatah, under the suggestion of Mahmoud Abbas, who didn't want these political figures that could challenge his rule in the West Bank to be released. And the ones that Israel actually released that could destabilize Mahmoud Abbas, as I said, were deported into exile. And we saw videos of those Palestinian families waiting for their loved ones and then realizing that they were exiled. Now, we look at also the other Palestinian prisoners that were kidnapped from Gaza during this war and being released. Many of them have now permanent disabilities, have lost limbs because of torture inside these camps. And the least of it is being raped, as we have seen. And yes, the Palestinian resistance held on and protected the Zionist prisoners of war because, on the one hand, this is what Islam requires you to do, to treat your prisoners justly. On the other is because they want to be a clear difference between how Palestinians treat their prisoners versus how the Zionists treat their prisoners. And I would say that like there's now videos of those Zionist prisoners of war talking about how the Palestinian resistance gave them Bibles or Torahs to read, to pray. They protected them throughout the war. And remember that story about Palestinians demonstrating against Hamas in the middle of the war of last year? Well, it turned out that this was a special operation by Hamas to move some of the Zionist prisoners from an area that was being bombarded, where they could have been killed, to the south of Gaza. And what they did is they fabricated this anti-Hamas demonstration, Hamas operation, okay, to have a crowd and to walk these Zionist prisoners in between the crowd, and in fact, even on the front line of the demonstration, and gave them the chance to chant against Hamas. And some of them were carried on the backs of the demonstrators with the drones, the quadcopters, and so forth flying near their heads and filming them. And the Israelis themselves didn't know that these are their own prisoners, where they were moved to a safe zone. This was one of the testimonies of the Israeli soldiers that were released in this exchange. Just yesterday came out in the Israeli media. So the definitely the shadow unit, as it's called, that was responsible for protecting these Zionist prisoners of war, is now freed to do other things. One of the things that they are doing right now is go after all the collaborationists, those who worked with the Zionists to attack the aid convoys and steal the food and kill and or point out Hamas or other resistance leaders or fighters on the ground for the Zionists. We saw just in a span of 48 hours, most of these collaborationist gangs being liquidated at the hands of the shadow unit of Hamas. In fact, the leader of Abu Shabab gang has now been rushed out of Gaza and is inside Israel proper in 1948 territories of Palestine. That shows you how much this shadow unit is very important and has capabilities now that will be used properly and not just hidden to protect Zionist prisoners of war.
Right. Since, on that note, Zionist prisoners of war, another really interesting report came out of the resistance in the last 24 hours. As you may know, Laith, the Israelis are claiming that one of the bodies that has been turned over to them is not, in fact, an Israeli soldier. Well, this is the account of the resistance with respect to that controversy. This is actually was a source for Al Jazeera that the body the occupation claimed by the Zionist entity to be non-Israeli is in fact an IOF soldier captured by Al-Qassam brigades during an operation in May 2024. Al-Qassam previously announced the capture of the soldier who was equipped with specialized weapons inside a tunnel in Jabalia camp in May 2024. I think you and I might have actually discussed a video of that at some point last year. But in any event, it says the soldier was later revealed to be a collaborator from the West Bank working with the IOF. So, what do you make of this report? That's quite something. And so the Israelis are renouncing this person, saying this is not one of ours. But the resistance is saying, in fact, it is one of yours, even if it was a collaborator.
Yeah, it's actually miraculous that the resistance was able to identify where this man is from, because we were all, of course, shocked watching that video of a special unit of the Zionists, falling into a trap inside that tunnel and then being killed, and the body of this one soldier being dragged by the resistance. Some of our viewers may remember it. And people were arguing at the time, is this guy a mercenary from Latin America or Southeast Asia or South Asia? And eventually, as we see now, it seems like Hamas knows that this was a collaborator Palestinian from the West Bank. And that's a huge intelligence success to be able to pin down who this person is. And look, on the other side, we see how the Zionists have used mercenaries from all around the world. Colombian mercenaries, American gangsters, Nazis from Ukraine, others, and many of them were killed on the battlefield. And neither their nations of these mercenaries nor the Israelis give a damn about either retrieving their bodies and or commemorating them for their sacrifice to the Zionist colony. So that shows you, for anyone, an Indian or Colombian or Ukrainian that thinks that, if they do something like this, that Israel will show them love. On the contrary, Israel knows you as a Ukrainian or Colombian or Indian to be a useless garbage tool that they'll be discarded like a used condom at the end. That's what you are. And the Jewish supremacy that is in the minds and hearts of these Zionists doesn't only extend to Palestinians, Arabs, and Muslims, it extends to the whole planet. Okay, so anyone and everyone that works with the Zionists are self-humiliating, self-flagellating, okay? So that's one thing. The other thing that should be noted here is that the Zionists have not only destroyed Gaza or destroyed the graveyards of Gaza or the cemeteries of Gaza, they have stolen thousands upon thousands of bodies of Palestinians from graveyards in Gaza, even ones that were graveyards that were made during the Holocaust in Gaza. So people are going back to the graveyards of where they buried their loved ones during this war and finding that they were all dug out and the Zionists stole the bodies. So currently there's tens of thousands of bodies of Palestinians killed in Gaza prior to this genocide and during this genocide. They were, looted by the Zionists. Zionists are child killers and grave robbers. That's, what Zionism means to the life cycle of a human.
Finally, on the question of the Palestinian prisoners, I believe in the prior round of releases, Free Palestine TV reporters on the ground in the occupied West Bank were able to cover extensively the release of those prisoners. I take it that this time around they weren't able to do that kind of reporting. Is that correct?
Yeah, we haven't been able to reactivate our West Bank reporting because of financial problems. Not enough donations in comparison to prior to January 2024. And because of problems transferring money right now to the West Bank. The Israelis over the last 9 months, instituted a lot of security, whatever procedures that are making it really hard for us to go and pay people salaries, and we will not abuse people and get them to work for us without paying them. The other thing that I would say here, just so people can understand how tight our financial situation is, yesterday we were down driving towards the border with in South Lebanon with Palestine. It's the olive picking season, and the Lebanese villages on the border were being escorted by the UNIFIL and the Lebanese army to be able to pick the olives. And unfortunately, Hadi's car, Hadi, of course, is my comrade and the camera person. His his whole gearbox just fell apart, and this car has, over the last year and a half, we've driven over 200,000 kilometers on it. It's usually 20,000 kilometers a year, the average for a car. So you could understand that over 10 years of driving happened in a year and a half. And now we're kind of stuck without a mobility. So we're trying to raise some money to be able to buy a car or something like that. Fixing this car is total. So if people can help, please go to our website, freepalestine.video, donate as much as you can, subscribe for a monthly donation. This is the only way we can maintain this work.
I spent many hours in that heroic vehicle. I'm saddened to hear of its untimely demise. So before you go, Laith, I do want to ask you about two other things. You did a report recently from South Lebanon on the latest round of attacks. Israel's genocidal military now seems to have become obsessed with construction equipment. Could you tell us briefly about what happened?
Yeah. So this was the third attack in 6 months on dealerships of heavy machinery, or lots where these heavy machinery is gathered. So first was this gathering of heavy machinery in Dir Siryan in the south, where the municipalities of the south were gathering these heavy machineries to begin the lifting the rubble and reconstruction. Then came a month ago an attack on a major dealership in Ansariye, on the main highway between Beirut and Saida in the south. And then now this dealership on the main highway between Saida and Nabatia city, in fact, it's like 7 different dealerships that are right on the main highway, were all attacked in one blow, 12 major warheads thrown on these machines. And even one of these companies lost over $100 million of machinery destroyed. So clearly the Zionists in the beginning were only targeting the machinery in the frontline villages as they arrive and do their work, and targeting the residents of the south when they come back and try to fix their homes. Then they moved into targeting gatherings of machineries close to the border, and eventually, just last week, also they targeted architects and surveyors that were working to survey the damage in these homes and infrastructure. And now they want to stop all import and distribution of heavy machinery in the south that could help in the rebuilding and lifting of the rubble. So this shows you also how desperate they are, because even with all the previous attacks, the Lebanese people have not been deterred and are very determined to rebuild their homes and return to them in the south of Lebanon. And this major attack is a clear example of how vicious the Zionists are. And one last thing I would say about this is that for the first time, we saw the prime minister and the president of Lebanon issue condemnation. And for the first time, the actual Lebanese government sent representatives that surveyed the damage to these machineries and to these companies, and have not like, took pictures and walked away. Have spent the last week, I've seen them every day as we're driving, documenting every piece of equipment that was destroyed, and are promising compensation and for these companies. And this is important because it shows you that this is now affecting not only the people of the south of Lebanon or the rebuilding. This is affecting the whole economy of Lebanon, which is triggering somebody like Nawaf Salam, the collaborationist prime minister, to actually take a stance.
Yes, I note in conclusion on this particular subject that the Israeli entity claimed that these pieces of heavy machinery were being, quote unquote, used by Hezbollah. So, in fact, they weren't being used by anyone because they were sitting on lots for sale. So they only belong to a dealer, as I understand it. Is that correct?
Yes. And a big part of this machinery just arrived on a shipment. And this happened also in the attack on Ansariya. So it seems like the Zionists, with the help of the UNIFIL, who searches every boat that comes into Lebanon, have direct information when the shipment of heavy machinery is arriving, and then they're waiting for them to be put on the lots and then attacking, as happens. So it's very clear that they know this dealership, for instance, that was attacked, where people can go watch this report, the latest one. This man is known for decades. It's 2 generations, family business. Is not aligned with any political party. So, you could see how surprised they are. And I think the Lebanese government that is collaborating with the West was also in a point of shock, because this is a person that they are clear in their mind has no connection to the resistance, doesn't sell equipment to anyone related to the resistance. So this is supposed to be one that's kind of almost, if not counted on their colors, at least neutral. So it's becoming very nasty, and it's affecting the whole health of the economy in Lebanon, not only punishing the people of the south.
Right. So my last question to you, Laith, is about Iran. Recently, a member of the Security Committee of the National Security Committee of the Iranian Parliament said that Iran had received MiG-29s from Russia. Also, the more advanced Su aircraft were on their way from the Russian Air Force, and air defense systems from both Russia and China. Apparently, the air defense systems included S-400s. Now, as far as I know, the Russian and Chinese governments have not officially confirmed this claim. And then subsequent to this report, Russian President Vladimir Putin had a telephone call with the war criminal Netanyahu. And although we don't know too much about what was said, they did acknowledge that they discussed, amongst other things, they were talking about what's going on in Gaza, but they also talked about Iran and its nuclear enrichment program. Now, I've seen a report that subsequent to that telephone call, Vladimir Putin spoke to his counterpart in Iran and conveyed a message on behalf of Netanyahu. I have no idea whether this is true, but conveyed a message on behalf of Netanyahu that Israel doesn't want another war with Iran. Do you have any view about what actually happened here? Do you think that that message was conveyed by the Israeli government to through Vladimir Putin to the Iranian government? Or do you, and if so, what do you make of it? Do you think it can be relied upon?
No, you can never trust Zionists. It's like the turtle and the scorpion crossing the river. You can never, the scorpion can't deny their own nature, right? And the Zionists will be killing all of humanity if they're allowed to. The other thing is that we have a historical event that's very similar. just before the 1967 war and the the attack by the Zionists on Egypt and Syria without any provocation. Just weeks before that and days before that, the Soviet Union told the Syrian government and Jamal Abdel Nasser in Egypt that Israel will not be attacking, that it was told that Israel is not going to be attacking. Don't worry about all those movement. So I don't think Iran will trust anything that comes as messages by the Zionists, especially such a message through Russia. Another thing that we should note is, of course, the Wahhabi death squad leader al-Julani is right now in Moscow meeting with President Putin and openly said that President Putin and Russia are the ones that helped them to take control of Syria. So if I was Iran, I would be very wary about anything coming from Russia. I would say if Iran takes these weapons from Russia, it should immediately reverse engineer them, and it should look for any kill switch in all of these machineries, because Russia could turn off those S-400 or MiGs or Sukhois in the middle of the air in a situation where a direct war between Iran and the Zionists plays out. So I wouldn't trust even these machineries in being handed over by Russia. Russia sold S-400s and S-500s and S-300s to Turkey and the Saudis before it did to Iran. And clearly the Saudis and the Turks and NATO behind them that controls them have themselves reverse engineered these machineries. So it's clearly a stupid thing for Russia to have done, made those sales to these countries. And I would add, obviously that if the Iranian military thinks that these equipment coming from Russia are going to make or break their military plans in a confrontation with the Zionist colony and the United States that is on the horizon, they will be committing suicide. Okay, they should never depend on these weapons. And I would say finally about China. We saw just over the last 2 days, China put those export restrictions on rare earths. And immediately we're seeing how this is affecting the military-industrial complex of the empire. We know that these rare earths are crucial to build the GPUs and smart missiles, and they are crucial to building F-35s and all of those things, and destroyers and submarines in the West. And this is kind of disappointing to see that it happened now, not 2 years ago. I remember when we were critical of how little China is doing to end this genocide other than talking or voting at the Security Council, while it remains to be the number 2 trade partner of the Zionist colony. Now at that time, people were telling us, China just trades with everyone. China's not going to liberate you. Why should China or Russia, risk something for Palestine? And obviously, we can see right now that China doesn't trade with anybody that it doesn't want to. And China has a lot of weight that it could move around. And maybe if China limited these rare earth exports at the beginning of this genocide, there wouldn't have been all those thousands upon thousands of GBUs that fell on Gaza, on Lebanon, on Yemen, on Iran, and the United States and the whole Western empire wouldn't have been able to produce all those deadly weapons nonstop to conduct the genocide.
Well, Laith, always a great pleasure to speak with you, and please stay safe. And I will put a link to the Free Palestine TV website for those who wish to donate to the indispensable work that you're the organization is doing. I'll put that in the description on the YouTube video. For now, we're signing off from Beirut and Kalamata, Greece on October 16th, 2025.